Nice. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 2. We're now veterans. We've had one under our belt. This is episode 2 of Noise from Ryan's Basement. As now and forever, I am Ryan, and with us today, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Zac Shaner, and I will be going under the name Plastic Windows for tonight.
There you go. So, here you are. You're a Topeka native.
I am.
And you've been up to some things. You've been up to lots of things, but talk about your current project a little bit.
Right, well, this is exciting because I actually just finished an album for this solo project. It's called Plastic Windows. And it's really weird how it just kind of came up out of the blue. I've been making these songs under the name Wray for a long time. It's a play on of my last name, Shaner, and my mother's maiden name, Wray, and I just kind of adopted that stage name a few years ago. But I can't even tell you where the name Plastic Windows came from. I just wanted something kind of random and psychedelic sounding. But yeah, it's just it's a project I started close to a year ago with kind of psychedelic indie rock influences and just kind of pulling from everything I know, from jazz to rock to just kind of everything I've ever listened to. So actually, I just finished an album within the past week. This is actually your copy. This is for you.
Sweet.
So it's got a track listing and everything on there. I actually printed those myself and put the cases together myself. So
nice.
Yeah, that's like a completely different creative adventure. It's just making the CDs.
Yeah, I've been there. I did that when I was pretty close to the age you are, so. We'll put it in here with it. So yeah, how long did you work on this?
I want to say I started around March of this year. I wrote like one track that I wanted to be experimental and psychedelic, almost a shoegaze feel. And I showed it to my friends in my band Pegasi, and they liked it so much they wanted me to make more, and so it just inspired me. And from then on, I just kind of created my own solo project under that kind of sound. I wanted to model every other song I made after the first one. So I made that first one, What Is This World, and that's actually the opener, appropriately enough. And just everything from then on just kind of took off. I wrote songs. I didn't really have a specific schedule that I adhered to. I just kind of wrote them as they came to mind. I didn't want to rush the creative process or anything, so I just kind of wrote them as I thought of them. And eventually, when I thought I had a good number, I figured 10 tracks at around 45 minutes, because some of them are kind of longer songs. I figured that'd be a good number to go ahead and put it out, and New Year's is as good a time as any to put out an album. So.
Right.
Yeah, so it just all kind of came together over that course of 9 to 10 months.
And I can't have any favorites yet because I haven't listened to it. So, I for a second I have to talk about this. Most people who don't know you guys probably think that band was Pegasi.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I thought, and that's what I've heard other people say, but yourself and Reese both said differently, so that's funny.
Yeah, and we've actually, we've had numerous projects over just the 2 years that we've known each other. We've put some music out under Pegasi, but that's actually I think been the least prolific group in terms of songwriting. We've had some music under Grime and Dime, where we appear as like a background artist for Colin Wright. He's a phenomenal singer, great guitarist. Actually, he's a banjo player too, and he's featured banjo on some of his songs. But Grime and Dime, that's just another group that we've been working on for a while, for a couple years now. And but yeah, it's just Plastic Windows. It's just all me. It's just something that I came up with. I want to say last March, or this March of 2016.
Nice.
And yeah.
Well, I assume that you're going to play something from this for us.
Yeah.
So go ahead and give us a little taste, and
all right,
everybody, we'll have, wherever it is that you can get this from him, we will make sure that we have links in the description below.
All right. I'm just gonna play a little bit, kind of an excerpt from What Is This World? It's kind of it's like a grandiose track. Like it opens up and you just know something's about to happen. It just kind of comes at you. So.
Right.
Okay, so it starts off with the drum fill, but I don't have any of that, so. I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. That's just the basic verse progression for the chords. Honestly, it's kind of difficult to express a whole Plastic Window song with only one instrument, because when I write them, I use all instruments.
Right.
And the idea is they can come from anywhere. Like I could actually start a song off with a bass riff, and then go from there. Which I actually brought a bass so that I could show you just kind of how some of the songs come to life. Alright, so some songs, they come from the guitar chords, which I actually had that idea for What Is This World. I wrote it on guitar first. But other songs, just depending on how I'm feeling or just whatever melody pops into my head, I'm a bass player at heart, so sometimes I'll just come up with them on the bass, because I played bass with Pegasi for the longest time, so I feel more inclined on the bass than on the other instruments, actually. So, like, for example, I want to say the third track on the album, Ardently Refuse, I actually started that off with the drum beat that I thought was kind of cool and funky, and I added bass to that, and I got something like this. And it just kind of goes off of those four chords.
Yeah, some nice funk.
Yeah.
This probably won't come in on the camera. One of the fun things about doing this in my basement is that I'm not attempting to hide the fact that my family is here and there are noises upstairs. And we have a small cat who thinks she's a piano player.
Oh, yeah.
And if we leave the piano open, she will actually sit on the piano bench and play the piano. Yeah.
Nice. So we might look forward to hearing.
Yeah,
some
so
of
when
that,
you were
yeah.
playing just now, I heard her get up on the piano and go blink, blink. But then they came in and she must have jumped down. Yeah. Yeah, it's that was pretty funky. Is the stuff that's behind it equally funky?
Yeah. Well, it is a lot funkier than some of the other songs on the album, but I tried to still adhere to that psychedelic indie sound. So the guitar part is actually. It's just chords like the other parts. So I tried to keep the same psychedelic sound throughout all the songs, so I mostly had the same effects for each song. I just usually use phaser, delay and echo, and sometimes a chorus or a flanger. And for solos, I'll use some fuzz or some overdrive, but the rhythm part is usually just a clean mix of those effects. So I managed to kind of stay funky while adding the shoegaze element, which is something that I hadn't ever heard anywhere else, but maybe it's out there, I just haven't heard it. But so the rhythm part for Ardently Refuse goes like this.
Yeah, that's properly funky and spacey,
Yeah.
just like you said. Is there singing anywhere on it?
There is singing, yeah,
Okay.
on all of the tracks, yes.
And so you played all instruments?
I did, yes.
Nice. I identify with you for that because I've been that way forever. So, yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about your writing process a little bit more. You know, I know how I get into writing things, but where do you find most of your inspiration? Do you hear things in your head and then play them, or do you just play until you find something good?
Yeah, well,
there seems to be several camps on that.
Right, yeah, it's kind of a mix on both for me. The idea is they can come from like all sources, you know. I'm sure you understand. As a singer, sometimes I'll have a vocal melody in my head and I'll try to pick a chord progression that matches with the vocals. Other times I actually come up with the instrumentals first, like What Is This World? I come up with the guitar progression first, and I sang along to that. So I try to, you know, just whatever I come up with first, I try to match it with the accompaniment. So if I come up with a drum beat first, I try to think of a chord progression and a rhythm that'll go along with that. If I come up with the rhythm first, I'll have to come up with a drum beat after that. But yeah, I mean, there's some examples that I can think of where I just know that I started off with one instrument. Like there's a song Where Wildfire Spread, which is pretty centered on the bass, and there's actually not much of a guitar part there. I mean, I wrote the guitar part, but I don't know. I kind of kept it in as an afterthought, you know. So it just goes along with the rhythm of the bass part. Which after I play the bass part, you'll understand why the guitar part is the way it is. It's something like that, but like I said, I don't consider myself a primary guitarist. I'm more of a bass player. So. And actually, a funny thing about these songs is I'll write them and then I'll forget how to play them because I don't have a band backing me. So I end up, you know, writing the song, recording it, and then that's
and then you have to learn it afterwards.
Yeah, I have to learn it afterwards. If I
know that well.
Yeah, yeah. So the actual bass part for that song that I was playing on guitar is
Yeah.
It goes on like that. And so
Yeah.
the guitar rhythm is
Yeah, I can
really
hear
just an
that.
afterthought to that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to play that you know you'd like to share with the class?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, songwriting is always a journey for me.
And I don't know. We're gonna leave this in so that people know. I'm not sure where that noise is coming from. We're getting a little bit of click on the transient of the notes, and I don't know why.
Oh, on the bass?
Yeah.
I think that might actually be the bass. I think that's just part of its tone. Like maybe it's the pickup or the. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the perks of having a really cheap bass. Which
I also have a really cheap bass. So.
Yeah. I actually have other ones, but there's just something about this one that I just wanted to use only this one for the whole album.
Yeah.
There's just something special about it. But yeah, like I said, I'm more of a bass player at heart, and I've been saying that a lot tonight. But just a lot of the songs, they just come to me on the bass first, and if they don't come to me on the bass, I try to make the bass parts interesting, even if it's just an afterthought. I try not to make it an afterthought. So this one in particular, this is from a track called Subjugation. It's one of the more experimental progressive tracks I made, and it's got a lot of movements, but in the first and last movement, they go off the same kind of motif, where the drums are playing a straight eighths rhythm. They go like a. And then the bass, it actually accompanies it with the polyrhythm, so you have this kind of weird dissonant feel. Sorry. It's kind of alternating with those
Yeah.
with those riffs, just those shapes there.
Yeah.
And,
I imagine those rhythms catch each other at different points.
They do,
in their
yeah. You just kind
timing.
of hear different parts of each one of them.
Yeah.
It's crazy how they came together. I actually didn't intend for that when I recorded it, but I'm not the world's greatest drummer, so it's hard for me to come up with the rhythm that'll match that bass part. So it's kind of a cool polyrhythm that goes on there. And the actual guitar riff, if I can remember it for bass. Actually cuts off there. That's strange. I can't even play that fret. Yeah, like I said, I forget my songs pretty often after I play them, but it all just kind of goes together in a way that you wouldn't quite expect. It's like I wrote all the parts separately, and then they just came together into one song.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened.
That's not that weird of a thing. I was just listening to Mike Ackerfeld the other day on Metal Talks, and he was talking about how a lot of the albums that he's done throughout the years, he goes into a room and writes the parts and brings it out and says, okay, here's this part, and then they goes back into the room and writes another part.
Yeah, exactly.
It can work, it can be terrible, and it can be really great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the prog world equally loves Opeth, so I guess in his case we can say it works.
Yeah.
But speaking of other bands, I guess firstly, how old were you when you started playing, and what did you start playing?
Well, when I was around 8 years old, we moved to this house, and somewhere along that moving transition, we got a free piano. It's probably off of Craigslist. Somebody just wanted to get rid of it, you know. So we got a free piano, and it was terribly out of tune, and some of the keys didn't even work. But I started fiddling around with it every now and then, and I realized that I had a knack for picking out simple melodies just by playing the keys. You know, I guess I just had pretty good ear training from that age onward, which is strange because I didn't sing a lot. You know, I guess I just realized my natural ability for music at that point, just playing the piano before I even started singing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like for example, Jingle Bells. I could just instantly pick out melodies on the piano, though. And then I later on worked that into instruments like the guitar and the bass, which I think that's something that every musician should know how to do, is to play things by ear. So I developed that first on the piano, and then I can't really think of anything in between then, but going into middle school, I played violin just to kind of see what the fuss was all about with it. And it was hard, but I learned to read music on violin and played that all through 8th grade, and then went into high school where I started picking up all these other weird instruments, and I actually kept playing violin in the high school orchestra. I'm still in the high school orchestra, but I'm playing double bass now, which that's a completely different story.
Yeah,
but
I also played double bass in high school. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's weird how I went from violin to double bass, but they needed more bass players, and they figured I was a fast learner, so I
managed to fit mine in the '88 Escort that I drove when I was in high school. I had to put the seat all the way back and recline it all the way back, and I had to put the headstock in first and then the bottom part of the bass, and it would fit exactly, touching the back of the hatch and touching the front of the floor. It was amazing.
Yeah. See, I'm lucky because we keep all the basses in the band room at the school. Like, I don't have a double bass, so I don't have to worry about transporting one. Except for when we go down to the auditorium to do concerts, I have to carry that thing down 3 flights of stairs. But yeah, I do double bass now in the orchestra, and I actually do saxophone / double bass depending on the season. Like if it's marching season, I'll do saxophone in the marching band, and then during concert band I'll do double bass. But yeah, I do piano, alto sax, which I just picked up this year, double bass, bass guitar, which I picked up sometime around, I want to say that was also in middle school when I started playing acoustic guitar. My brother had one laying around, and I just started picking out chords and learning more about it. And I actually learned ukulele around that same time. So I still fiddle around with ukulele because it's easy to take places and carry around and walk around while you're playing it. Sometimes I'll take it to school and just walk around. I'm like the ukulele guy there. And then I picked up drums, I want to say around 8th grade, when I asked my grandpa for a drum set for Christmas. And he got me this set that was like really, really elementary, but I just kind of played along with it and made it work. And so, yeah, I put more of my focus towards bass and guitar. I'm not the best drummer, but I do the drums for my records, so I mean, that says something about it.
Yeah. Influences. I always have to talk about influences with people. The big ones, through your whole life. For me, I can generally name about, 8 bands that I've listened to throughout the years. Well, who is that for you?
It's actually kind of difficult to say because growing up, when I discovered the internet and file sharing and how to get like all these different songs from different artists, I didn't always listen to albums and CDs. Rather, I would listen to just individual songs that were hits. Like, my brother had a big influence on my music taste because he would tell me, oh, you should listen to this one song, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, and which that's actually one of my favorite songs. I'm really into progressive
rock. Pretty
rock.
much anybody would agree.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I didn't know much about progressive rock at that time, but I knew that I loved that song, and then later on when I learned that it was progressive rock, I really got into progressive rock and just started listening to all these types of bands, and it was around that time that I discovered Kansas and learned that they were from here, and I just think that's really cool, that they're like one of the leading progressive rock bands in America, and they're from this town. So I'm really into progressive rock, obviously. I really like Rush, and just anything progressive rock. Rush, Yes, Genesis, Kansas, King Crimson. Lately I'm listening to more newer progressive rock, like Steven Wilson. And
I just recently saw him in concert, and it was mind-blowing.
Oh, man, I bet. I'm jealous. Yeah, as far as instrumental music goes, because I've been talking about hits that, they got words, everybody loves to sing along to them, so they make, like, the top 40.
Right.
But as far as instrumental music goes, it's not as widely listened to, I'd say. I'm really into jazz and jazz fusion. I love bands like Return to Forever and just experimental, groundbreaking bands like Weather Report that they really just push the boundaries between, they like kind of mesh rock and jazz together.
Yeah.
And with that kind of music, I almost feel like it doesn't need words because it speaks for itself. And not everybody really
have an album that you should listen to later.
All right.
LA Express. That's a fantastic album.
Awesome. Yeah, I love discovering new music. Great. I love jazz fusion and progressive rock, but I play, I forgot to mention this earlier, but along with the instruments I play bass guitar in the jazz band, and so learning jazz bass has really helped my composition skills, because it's like a completely different world from rock. Like, instead of doing like straight eights on a rock song, you got jazz, which is just all across the fretboard. It's every note is different.
Yeah.
It's crazy going from one thing to that. It's like just an eye-opener. So I do listen to a lot of jazz, and I like to think that that's, I don't know if it really shows through in my songwriting, but it definitely expanded my mind in listening to music. And so I think just discovering that, all the chord progressions and all the soloing modes that can be used, I think in a way, even though it doesn't usually sound like jazz, it still affected me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny, and if anybody who has known me my whole life ever actually watches this episode, they're gonna listen to you and think they're talking to me, because you're so much like me that it's almost weird.
Wow.
But I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. Jazz just affects everything, even even the super heavy bands that are doing stuff, it's so much more complex than it ever has been before.
Oh, yeah.
You know, back then it was all about just noise, and now it's noise with a purpose to some extent.
Yeah.
You know, like even Meshuggah has purpose. You know.
Yeah, it's
so
like formulated noise. Like, there's a science behind the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people say they don't like get jazz, but I mean, maybe not just listening to it on the surface with no knowledge of theory or anything, but I think I actually also forgot to mention this, but I took a music theory class last year in high school, and that's also really helped my understanding of music. It also went through music history, like about 25% of the class was history, going from like the classical and Baroque periods to, I want to say the avant-garde periods from like 60 years ago. So yeah, that's also really helped my understanding of music, but going back to what I was saying, there's kind of a line between writing music for the feeling and just writing it based off of your knowledge of theory, right? Like, you can write something simple that theorists would laugh at. They'll say, oh, that's not hard to play at all. You know, why bother? It's already been written before. But if it really speaks to your heart, you know, I think that goes beyond having to know a lot about theory, which I think that's the whole thing about music, is you can use theory to help it get to people, but don't let it rule you. Right. So I like to, when I write music, I keep theory in mind, but I also don't want to do something like overly complex. What some people think prog is, technical wankery, is what I've heard to describe it.
Yeah. Which some of it is.
Some of it is, yeah. I feel like some of it is kind of pretentious, like they're writing it for the sake of being profound. But I think that, you know, it's easy to tell when it's genuine. You know, like you can write something crazy complex and crazy hard to play and still be really good music, you know. Like Cliffs of Dover by Eric Johnson. I had to learn that for a talent show recently, and it completely opened my mind about the guitar. It helped me find new techniques like hybrid picking, and even helped my alternate picking. And it helped me so much just learning that one song. But it also really speaks to me. Like, I love that song in particular. Like, it just makes you really happy listening to it. It's I
agree. I'm a huge Eric Johnson fan.
Yeah, he's great. He actually became one of my favorite players just from me learning that song. I didn't really know anything about him before, but just learning that song, yeah. But going back to just how one song can speak to somebody, regardless of like how complex it is. I like to explore that topic, and because I have friends who have like such eclectic music tastes. Like Reese is a huge fan of prog, and Chris, our singer, is a huge fan of grunge and alternative rock, and those are just so different in the way that they're written. But it's caused me to see them from both sides, like from the side of somebody who just wants to feel the music and listen to it and understand it, and somebody who just wants to write music and show off. And I think there's like a line somewhere in there that you can make good music and still have it be impressive.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I definitely agree with that sentiment.
Yeah. So I don't really know how much of that is like somebody would consider hard to play, but I just write it from the heart, you know. I write what I think is good.
I've long said that if it's not coming from here, it's not even worth playing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Personal philosophy, and I am going to try not to spew too much of my own philosophy on this show because it's supposed to be about my guests and not myself, but personal philosophy is music is supposed to speak to the soul, and I just can't. To some degree, technical knowledge can work in that way, and it can definitely help you if you can speak more than one language, you know, musically speaking. Yeah. But if it's not coming from the heart, it's just not worth doing. And I feel the same way about playing live, you know. The audience is going to know that it's not coming from the heart, you know, whether they're technically, you know, minded or not, they'll know if you're not feeling it. Oh, yeah. And if you're not feeling it and they're not feeling it, then what's the point? So
yeah, exactly.
That's always been my thing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah.
I've not always been the most technical player, but it's always from here.
Same. Which it actually, that speaks to me especially because I've never had formal lessons with guitar or bass or really any of my instruments. Yeah. But that's kind of what makes it good is just finding out all these things for yourself, and really just learning an instrument kind of helps you discover more about yourself in a way, like your work ethic, just how impressive it is that you did this yourself and didn't really have somebody guiding you along the way. I'm not at all hating on people that did take private lessons, because there's advantages.
In some way, they have a leg up on the rest of us.
Yeah, there's advantages to that too. But I do think it is kind of special to bond with your instrument on your own time, and not just do what a teacher tells you to do, and just kind of do things for yourself. Which, again, there's a gray area there too, because doing the wrong technique can cause health problems in some cases.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, like I said, there's a kind of a line for everything that I've yet to meet, but I continue to try to meet that, in every song I write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, beautiful. I have nothing else to say. My brain is officially empty. Once again, check this out. Plastic windows. He literally he made this yesterday. I saw him post pictures, and I told him that he better be bringing me one, and here it is. So I'll have to listen to this later.
Great.
Thanks for being with us and talking to us, and
of course.
For everybody out there, once again, it's been another episode 2. I can't believe it's been 2 already. We're gonna just keep on trucking and keep on getting people in there. If you're somebody who's interested in being on the show, you can message us right to the Noise from Ryan's Basement page, and we'll get back with you and figure everything out. So that's it.
Great. Yeah.
Beautiful.